Welcome back, everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you three really cool setups using a Fresnel modifier. In fact, this Fresnel modifier right here, which is a Bowens 200mm Fresnel. I picked it up on eBay about 3 years ago, and it's been adapted to fit the Elinchrom ring. You could probably put any ring on the back of this unit. So if you picked one up on eBay, you could probably adapt it to use it with your light. But before we talk about this light and the setups today, let's talk about Fresnel's, or Fresnel himself. So French physicist Augustin Jean Fresnel invented the Fresnel lens in the 1800s, and what it does is it collimates beams of light and directs them forward. This was widely used in lighthouses, and then later it was used in the movie industry for all of the lights that they were using on set, or most of the lights that they were using on set. In photography, this was then picked up by the old Hollywood black and white film noir photographers as well. So it gives us sort of that vintage, cool feeling, if you will. Today, you could pick up Fresnel's on the used market, let's say like from Mole Richardson. These are movie lights. I have a few of them here in the studio, and you could use those as your modifier, or actually as your light and your modifier all in one. These are going to be tungsten lights. They're going to be very hot, and it's going to be hard on your models or subjects because they're going to have to look at a bright light all day. Then companies like Nanlite and Aputure make Fresnel lenses for their LED lights, and these come in a Bowens mount and can be adapted to your strobes. However, they can be quite heavy, and they might cause your strobe to droop if it doesn't have a fairly strong bracket. And this will happen slowly, at least in my experience, over the course of the shoot, and every few minutes you might have to put it back into position. Or you could get something purpose-made for photography like this Bowens Fresnel, which you're going to end up finding on eBay. These modifiers are going to give you a very strong beam of light that's going to look like sunlight, or at least that's what you're going to be thinking when you look at it. But because this lens is 8 inches or 200mm across, it's going to be larger relative to your subject than the actual sun. So it's going to be a little more forgiving than that sunlight. And it's going to make really nice, beautiful, hard light. So during this shoot today, I'm going to be working with my friend Jason Cates. He's a model that I've been working with since at least 2008, and we've really developed a great relationship over the years. He always comes in with great ideas, and today he came in with a series of images that showed models falling in all of the photos. So all of the poses, the model was sort of doing some weird thing and falling over. They were all shot in black and white and using hard light. So I thought that the Fresnel would be a great choice for this series of images. The most important thing that you can do in a shoot like this, because there's a lot of movement, is freeze the movement. And so in order to do that, I've got to use something called flash duration in order to stop everything that's moving on set. In general, flash duration is just the speed at which the light pulses out of the flash and then stops. And so I found in a previous test, which I created a video for, which I will link to, that you needed a flash duration at about 1/3000th of a second and a difference between the ambient light and the flash output of at least 3 stops. You could use a light meter to figure this out, or you could just take a picture with flash at the settings that you're going to use and the power output that you're going to use, and then take a picture without. And if the picture without is generally blank, then you're probably just fine. So what I did, technically speaking, is I reduced the output power of my flash, the Elinchrom 5, which I'm using here with the Bowens Fresnel. I reduced it to around 1/8 power, or 65 watt seconds, and that gave me a flash duration at about 1/3000th of a second. Then I reduced the output of the lights that I'm using to record this video so that there was at least a 3-stop difference between the two. I ended up with an exposure of 1/200th of a second at f5.6 at ISO 400. All right, so I'm going to bring in these strip lights to light up the background. Strip lights are a great way to get an even look on a backdrop. If you use reflectors pointed directly at the backdrop, it usually isn't as even, but this will spread the light out quite nicely. I think the background needs to be more even side to side, so I'm just gonna turn these out a little bit. I'm gonna aim them to the other edge of the backdrop. Okay, that looks better. The power output of these strip lights is actually quite low, and so their flash duration is a lot faster than a 3,000th of a second. I also noticed in the test frames that his shadow was falling on the background, so I'm going to move the light further to the side so that his shadow falls off of the set. Okay, and then let me know when this is pointed at you.
Right there.
Well, I should have got that on the shot. Oops. I also decided that as he took off layers of clothing or articles of clothing, he would leave them on the floor. That way they would pile up as we went through the series. So for this next look with Jason, I want the viewer to feel like they're being interrogated by a detective and he's looming over them and he feels very menacing. In order to convey or create this emotion, we're gonna have to do some really cool things with the lighting. So I'm gonna start off by placing the Fresnel down low under the camera, pointed up at him. Next, I'm going to place the strip softboxes behind him over each shoulder, and I'm going to take the diffusion material off of the front. One of the cool things about these indirect strip softboxes is that the light points away from the subject, which means that if you take off the diffusion, it's just going to create a very tall, skinny, narrow, hard light. And so that's going to really make a crisp outline on him from the top to the bottom. Now, if you don't have one of these modifiers, you could just use a 7-inch reflector on a light, and that will give you a similar look, but it won't be exactly the same, but no one's probably going to notice. After I took some test frames, I realized that the light wasn't very flattering, and so I decided that what I was going to do was light him from below, but also from above. So I took a light with a 7-inch reflector and put it down there where the Fresnel was located. Then I put the Fresnel up higher on the light stand to light him from the front. So lean over the table again. Okay, great. So if I can just narrow the beam, and this has an iris that lets me do that to just his face. And that's about right. Okay, good. Hopefully that will give me what I need. Okay, so I'm just trying to light his face from above. So that's going to be my main light. When I took the test photo, it was too uplit, so I'm trying to avoid that. All right, so I need to know how bright this is. So it's 5.6. So let me make the fill F4, or this light down here F4. And this is going to cast the shadow on the backdrop. Okay, so that's coming in now at F4. Great. And I think I was shooting at 5.6 earlier. I was, and let me figure out what these edge lights are doing. And they are at F4 as well. So everything's at F4 except for the face, that's 5.6. All right. Okay, great. That looks quite nice. I'm going to go to the color editor and I'm going to make this color of his shirt. I'm going to make it lighter. There we go. Somewhere like that. That should be fine. Let me shoot one light at a time just so you can see. There's the main, there's the edge, there's the fill or the bottom light, and here's everything. Okay. For a shot like this, height is key. If you want to convey the emotion that the subject is more powerful than the viewer, then you've got to keep the camera low so it looks like the viewer is looking up at the model. Bring your body down a little lower, like bring your butt back a little. Okay, great. Bring your chin up a little bit more. Don't change anything. Okay, now, okay, let me turn this up on. Great, okay. Such a narrow beam. Okay, great. Perfect. So this light has an iris in it that lets you close it down and focus it, which is one of the cool features of it. As you can see now, like it just opens and closes like a lens, and that lets you restrict the beam, and I did restrict it quite a bit, so I only had it on his face here. Go back to for just a sec. Let me show them what would happen if I fired only the main light. So here's just the main light by itself. And you can see how tight it is. If I go to the extreme, this is what it looks like. And if I go the other extreme, this is what it looks like. So if I went too wide, it was going to affect the shadow on the background. And if I went too tight, it was going to be too tight on his face. And I really needed him to have some nice light coming from above on his face because he looked very weird with all the light coming from below. So for our third look, we're going to create a black and white film noir profile shot. We're going to start off by placing a light with a 7-inch reflector on camera right behind Jason, pointed back at him. Then we're going to light the background with a light with a 20-degree grid and some barn doors. Now the barn doors aren't really doing anything. I just left them on there because they were on there. And then finally, over here on camera left, a little behind Jason, I'm going to add the Fresnel, and that light's going to come back there and strike his face and create sort of a Rembrandt lighting pattern. All right, so that light on his face looks about right. I'm going to look at the light on the background now. Okay. All right, so I need to get it lower and point it higher, and it needs to be darker. So a lot of things at once. Because my background light was too bright at minimum power, I decided to change out the light blue backdrop for a crimson backdrop. That did the trick as far as the brightness goes, but then the problem I had was that it looked like the background was a little too rippled from the imperfections there in the paper. And so I decided that I needed less depth of field, so I moved the camera back 3 feet, Jason back 3 feet, as well as the kicker and the main light. In retrospect, I should have just pulled up all of the backdrops and used the gray wall that was back there because it is a reliable, smooth surface. I then decided that my shadows were too deep, so I added an indirect strip softbox for fill. I started off with it on camera right, and then I realized that it would be better on camera left, so it looked like the light from the main light was wrapping around Jason and filling him in there from that side. I really wasn't feeling the sort of profile shot that I had going there at the beginning, so I decided to turn Jason a little bit more towards the camera and have him roll up his sleeves and to create an action shot. Since his head was also turned more towards the camera, that meant that I had to adjust the light slightly to match the new angle for his face. All right, so the main light is metering at 5.6. The fill light is metering at 2.8.5. The edge light here, it's metering at 2.8, and the background light, it's metering at f8. Chin down a little, look a little higher than where you're looking. So you're more neutral in your gaze. Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps it up. If you have any questions or comments, just leave those below. And if you enjoyed learning from me in this video today, you probably would also love learning from me on the Academy with John Gress. That's my exclusive members-only learning platform. And on the Academy, you'll find longer format tutorials than what you'll find here on YouTube, including a tutorial that's all about this shoot with Jason from start to finish. You can watch me go through the shoot almost in real time from multiple angles. You can see all the problem solving and adjustments that I had to do to make these images work. And really, problem solving is about 90% of photography. So if you want to check that out and all the other exclusive content, there is a 3-day free trial. Just go to johngress.com/academy to check it out. If you want to check out another video that's all about Fresnel lenses with some in-depth information, click on this one up here. And if you want to watch a video that YouTube thinks you'll love, click on this one. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.